Hello, everybody. I wanted to put together a little review to help you guys with the comprehensive problem, at least the first couple steps to get you to the first two columns of the worksheet. So, from the beginning, steps that you should be following in order, making sure you're not skipping any. As you know, the first thing we need to do is to journalize, and we have the 5 special journals. We've talked many times in class about asking the questions until you get a yes. So the first question, did I sell merchandise on account? Remember, on account means they're going to pay you later. They're not giving you cash now. So if you're selling merchandise on account, make sure you're recording it in the sales journal. Now, don't forget, companies can sell assets. They can sell a car, they can sell a building, they can sell their technology, they can sell equipment. That's not the same thing. This is not merchandise. Selling an asset and selling merchandise to customers are two different things. So make sure that you record those properly. Question number 2, did I purchase any merchandise on account? So if you purchase merchandise on account, that goes in the purchases journal. Remember, you have to go out to your vendors to get merchandise to sell to your customers. When you do that and pay for it later, it goes in the purchases journal. Just like the sales journal, you can purchase an asset. You can buy a car, a building, computers, a lot of the same things. This is not a purchase of merchandise. So make sure you're looking at the transactions, you're reading them carefully, and you're determining whether or not it's a sale or purchase of merchandise or the sale or purchase of an asset. Right? They're not treated the same way. Moving on. Did you receive cash? Did you receive cash? When that answer is yes, cash receipts journal. Remember, it doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter why. If in any way, shape, or form your company received cash, or obviously a check is the same thing, it belongs in the cash receipts journal. So make sure that you record it there properly. Obviously, the headings will tell you where to put it. And if nothing falls under a heading, it goes into the other category. On the opposite, did you pay cash? Did you write a check? Anytime that answer is yes, you're going to use the cash payments journal. And again, it doesn't matter why you're writing the check, what you're buying, what you're paying for. All right, it's not material at all. As long as you're writing a check or paying cash, it goes in the cash payments journal. And again, as we've said many times in class, when you get 4 no's, that's the general journal. I did not sell anything on account. I did not buy anything on account. I did not receive cash. I did not pay cash. When you get 4 no's, it goes in the general journal. You'll find sales returns and allowances in the general journal, recording your payroll in the general journal, when you return merchandise, your adjustments, and closing entries. So there are a handful of things that go there. But when you get the 4 no's, it's in the general journal. Now remember, you can't go wrong by putting anything in the general journal. It will cause you a few more steps. There will be more chance for mistake. But you can't go wrong putting something that you're unaware of or you're not sure where it goes in the general journal. In the end, it'll all work out. Now, after you journalize, make sure that you total all your columns except for the other columns. Right? A lot of you like to total the other columns. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a mistake. But just make sure you don't post that total. Right? That's the only issue I have with totaling an other column is you might have the tendency to want to put that number someplace. But after our journalizing is done, we need to post to our ledgers. This is where many of the mistakes are going to occur because there's so many moving parts and there's so many moving points. So we have to go meticulously, go slowly, and take our time. Post your totals from the sales journal, purchases, cash receipts, and cash payments journal. And then post the others individually, one at a time. And 99 out of 100 times, the others are going to come from the cash receipts or the cash payments journal. And then the last thing you could do is post your general journal entries. Again, as a reminder, go slowly. Make sure to post reference in both the ledgers and the journals. This is a great way to keep track of where you are, where you've been, and when you're troubleshooting, where your numbers were coming from and where you put them. It'll speed up that process if you ever need it. So take your time. Make sure that you're putting the correct number in the correct spot and use your post references to your advantage. Now, your first ever check, getting that unadjusted worksheet column to balance. You're going to move your balances from each ledger account. Start with cash at the top, go one at a time, and post it to the unadjusted worksheet column. Transfer the amounts to the proper account and on the proper side. Be careful to put a debit into the debit column and a credit into the credit column. Obviously, skipping an account or putting a balance on the wrong side is going to cause our numbers to be unequal. Take your time. And then we're going to add the columns up, cross our fingers, and hope that they balance. Now, many times they're not going to, and that's okay. The question is, how do we fix it? Now, if your columns don't balance, don't panic. Remember, we've said this many times. You could be off by $1 million or off by $10. The amount of the difference does not dictate the size of the problem. Right? You definitely want to know how much you're off because many times that might be the number that's missing and it's an easy find. But don't let the amount of the difference panic you at all. Now, the best way to do this is to retrace your steps, basically going backwards. So, the first thing you should do is re-add the columns. If you're using the formulas on a spreadsheet, make sure you covered all the cells. If you're adding them up on a calculator, which I don't like, I don't recommend, but if you're doing that, re-add them. That's step number one. Secondly, did we put the right account in the right column? Do we have our assets in the debit side, our contra assets or accumulated depreciation on the credit side, our liabilities on the credit side? Unearned revenue sometimes is a mistake. It needs to be on the credit side. C for capital, C for credit, D for drawing, D for debit. Make sure it's on the correct side. Sales returns and allowances and sales discounts are contra sales accounts. They are debits. Obviously, your revenues are credits, and all your expenses are debits. Remember, cost of goods sold is an expense. It goes on the debit side. The only thing that has a revolving balance, if you will, is cash short and over. Sometimes it'll be debit if you were short money. Sometimes it'll be credit if you had too much money. Otherwise, everything should be in the right column. Double check those. Now, you added the columns right. The accounts are in the correct side. You have to go back one more step. Did you transfer them from the ledgers correctly? Did you slowly move the correct number to the correct column? Did you transpose the number? Did you put it in the wrong slot? You have to meticulously go back, starting with cash and rechecking each transfer of the number. Now, if you did that right, now you have to go back to the ledgers themselves. Did you add debit to a debit balance? Did you subtract a debit and a credit? Did you add credits and credits? Did you subtract credits and debits? You have to make sure that each transaction was recorded into the balances correctly. Go over them one at a time, re-add them. I know it's a pain, I know it's slow, but that's the only way to find the answer. If that checks out, now you have to go back to your journals. Did you add the totals correctly? Did you post the totals correctly? Did you journalize correctly? Usually you'll find the answer well before you get back to this point, but you might have to go back to the beginning, which again is why we need to take our time with each transaction. So I hope this helps. The next video we'll talk about our adjustments and then moving the numbers to the income statement and balance sheet side. All right, we will talk tomorrow. Hopefully you have your journalizing and posting done, and we have our unadjusted numbers in our worksheet. The more you have done, the more questions we can answer, and we'll talk with you guys tomorrow.